A person once built a huge villa basically for the purpose of hachnosas archim. And that wasn't just something he planned, that was something that he actually did. Everyone knew from far and wide, you can always come to this particular villa, to this house, and you'll always get a nice warm bed, a pillow, a blanket, and a good meal. And this person was very proud of what he was doing, of what he had set up. And people took advantage of it. They came from far and wide. But one thing, however, that he was faulted with was when a person left, he never really walked along with the person and said, goodbye, it was nice of you to come. In other words, he provided the physical aspect of the Hachnosas Archim, and he was proud of that, but never the emotional support that should go along with it. It's also part of the mitzvah of Hachnosas Archim. No one ever really walked away feeling good about himself. But nonetheless, empty stomachs turned into full stomachs, tired feet turned into rested feet, so people continued to take advantage of it. Once there was a terrible fire that devoured the entire estate. And this man came running to the Kafka Rebbe and he started crying. And he said, Rebbe, why did this happen to me? Look, I've given so much to fulfill the mitzvah of Hachnosas Archim. Don't you think I should have been protected min hashamayim? So the Kafka Rebbe told him, the pasuk says, in regard to Avraham Avinu, vayita eishel, that he planted an eishel. There's a machlokes in the Gemara what eishel means. Some say it's this tree where everyone could enjoy its shade and relax traveling. And others say eishel is a special inn where people can stop and spend time there. Eishel is Rashi Tevos Achila. He gave them food. Avraham Avinu supplied all the food the people needed. Shasiya, he gave them to drink. And Lina. Lina means he gave them a place to spend the night. But the Lamed also stands for Levoya, to accompany him. In other words, Avraham Avinu didn't just take his Orchim in, give them food, and then send them off. He walked with them. He made them feel like a yesh. He made them feel like they're a person. Thank you so much for coming. It was so nice to meet you. I hope that we're going to see each other again. The person left with such emotional support, feeling so good in his heart. And that satiated feeling lasted far and beyond the food that was long digested in his stomach. Therefore, the Kafka Rebbe concluded, if we are to understand that the perfect setting for Hachnosas Archim, defined by the term Eishel, means Achila Shasiya Levaya, what happens to a person who may provide food or a roof, but doesn't give them the courtesy of making the human being feel like a human being by saying something to him, by giving him a word of encouragement, by walking along with him when he leaves? So if you have Eishel and you take off the Lamed, what are you left with? Aleph Shin, Eish. You want to know why it burnt down? That's why. The last parsha in our Seder is the parsha of Eglah Ruf. The pasuk says, Ki yimatzei cholol ba'adama, if a dead body is found in the ground, Shashem alekecha noisen l'chol rishta, noifel basoda, lo noidem yiko, and it's not known who struck this person. So it is incumbent upon the Zekanim and the Shoftim, the elders of the community, to go out and to measure to which town does the body lay closest to. And that town now has serious responsibilities. The Ziknei, the elders of that town, have to bring an Eglas Bakar that never worked, and they have to go down to Nachal Esam, to an area that was never planted, never plowed, and they have to proceed to chop off the head of the calf, and that is representative of the idea, of the message. As Chazal say, Rashi brings, Omar Kadosh Baruch Hu, let this young calf come that never provided for any payrois, that never did any work for anyone, that never had any offspring, and let it be chopped off in a place where no payrois ever grew. In other words, let's emphasize what it means that a human being was taken from this world, that we didn't allow him to remain over here in this world to continue to produce. And the Bezdin has to make a statement, Yadeinu le'shavchlas adam hazeh. We did not spill his blood, and our eyes did not see how this happened, when it happened, who did it. Fragt Rashi, quoting the Gemara, Bezdin has to make this statement? You mean if Bezdin didn't make the statement, they were suspects? I would think this Bezdin over here, sitting in their Bezdin room with the long white beard, this Bezdin, these holy people are suspect of murder? We accuse them. They have to come out and say we didn't do it? Fragt the Gemara, do we really think that they're a bunch of murderers? Or rather, their statement is as follows. The B'nai Shalom, we are sorry, the Bezdin says. We did not see what was happening over here. We did not see that perhaps a person left our town and people didn't give him enough food. We didn't see that a person left our town and he was not accompanied. No one went along with him. No one gave him a feeling that he's a human being. No one gave him a feeling that there is someone that is sad that he is leaving and is looking forward to see him again. And the Gemara goes on to say, someone who accompanies his friend Arba Amos in the city and walks along with him, Einoi Nizuk, that person is not hurt. And if a person does not follow along with a guest, show him to the door, walk along with him a little bit, to fulfill this aspect of Achnosis Archim, to be malava him, to walk with him and say, I'm sorry that you're leaving, I hope to see you again. If he doesn't do it, Ki'ilu Shoifech Damim, that is tantamount to murder. The Maral explains, when you walk along with someone, you're making a statement. When people accompany a guest, and they walk along with him, you know what they're saying? They're creating an atmosphere. They're creating a fact on the ground that no Yid is alone. That every Yid is a part of the set of Klal Yisrael. And that is the greatest shmira, when Yidden connect themselves to each other. There are safety in numbers. Walking along with someone makes the statement, he has to go now, but he's not alone. We're looking with anxious eyes as he leaves, and we're showing care and affection to him. And even though the Maral explains you're not walking him all the way, you're only walking for 20 minutes with him, or even Arba Amos says the halacha. But you've made the statement that even when he's alone, he's not alone. He's part of Klal Yisrael. But when you allow someone to leave alone and no one is there to say goodbye and he just walks away, so you took that koyach away. You sort of robbed him from this concept that every Yid is a set of Klal Yisrael and no one stands alone. And as a result, in a sense, tantamount to Shrichas Damim. Separating a person from the Klal, not making him feel that he belongs, is spilling his blood. When Titus stabbed the Paroiches, Dam came out. The Maral explains, Dam represents the Pirud. Blood is a sign of separation between the body and neshama. As long as the body retains its blood, the neshama remains mechuber to the guf. When the body loses its blood, it's a sign of separation. When Titus stabbed the Paroiches, and the Golus ensued, so there was a separation between Klal Yisrael and the Ashras HaShechina in the Beis HaMikdash. Golus had begun. And that separation was symbolized by Dam. The Panovich Rav was once traveling through Europe, raising money for the yeshiva. And he told his personal physician that was accompanying him, please arrange with the travel agent that we have an hour to stop off in Rome. And he wondered about this. He said, Rav, do we know any rich people in Rome who we can possibly raise money for the yeshiva from? And the Panovich Rav did not answer. But when they landed in Rome, they got into a cab, and he asked the driver to take them to the Arch of Titus. There's an arch in Rome which was built when Titus came back from the Beis HaMikdash, holding the menorah triumphantly that he destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. So the taxi driver drove them to this arch and pulled off to the side of the road, and the Panovich Rav got out and looked up at the arch, and afterwards he made a statement. He said, Titus, what happened to you? Look at you. Triumphant, you destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. But what are you now? A mere heap of rocks. Titus, You thought you won. You thought you were victorious when you destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. You thought it's the end of Torah and the end of Klal Yisrael. And what do you get for your efforts? That every single day they burn you and spread you over the 7 seas. Titus, you want to come to Bnei Brak? You want to see the yeshiva that we're building? You want to come to Yerushalayim? You want to see the Mekaynos HaTorah? You want to see the thousands of kohelim like throughout Eretz Yisrael? Titus, you couldn't come if you want to because you're nothing but a heap of stone. Who was victorious? Who won? Those rocks that are sculptured to your image. Hold up that menorah over here. This was the proudest moment of your life. What are you left with? Nothing but those rocks. Come to Eretz Yisrael. Look at what we are building. Look at the life of Torah. Look at the many, many more yeshiva light and kohen light that are being added, Baruch Hashem, to Klal Yisrael in each generation. What a mockery. Your victory. Titus, look what happened to you. You're nothing. And I'm returning to Eretz Yisrael where we're building the Panovich Yeshiva. And with those words, the Panovich Rav got back into the taxi and they headed back for the airport. Titus's victory, which was symbolized by the dam coming out of the Paroiches. Sova Shahara Gesatzmai, the Gemara says. Titus thought he had accomplished his ultimate goal, and that is the pirud between Klal Yisrael and the Rebbeinu Shalom. They no longer have anything to do with each other. And in effect, what allowed for Titus to come in and to do that terrible act in the Beis Hamikdash, the sin of Chinam, there was a pirud in Klal Yisrael. But ultimately, it was only on the surface. From inside, Klal Yisrael is still connected. Klal Yisrael is still drawing from each other. We're still accompanying each other. The yeshivas are forming in collusion. There is a union of people being moister nefesh themselves for limud haTorah. The paroiches is being hung back up. It is being cleaned from its blood. It is being sutured from its wounds. The period is no longer there. The Ashroas Hashchina and Klal Yisrael are coming together. I once heard from Rabbi Yaakov Zochaim Levracha, when the Shvatim came back and they told Yaakov Avinu that Yosef was alive, so at first he didn't believe them. And then the pasuk says, "Vayaresu Agolos," he saw the wagons that Yosef had sent, that he and his Ruach came alive, the Ruach HaKodesh came back to him, the Simcha came back to him, he now knew Yosef is alive. So Rashi brings the Chazal, "Vayaresu Agolos," that the last parsha that Yaakov Avinu learned with Yosef, before Yosef was so painfully separated from his father, was the parsha of Egla Rufa. This parsha that we're discussing from this week's Sedra. And when it says Vayaresu Agolos, so Yosef sent a message to Yaakov Avinu, I remember all you taught me about the parsha of Egla Rufa. So that Yaakov came alive, he knew it had to be Yosef. No one could have made this up. No one could be fooling him. Who else knew what he was teaching his son on that day? The Mefarshim explained already that Yaakov Taka wanted to be Malavi Yosef, to walk along with him, to protect him. But Yosef had traveled further than the destination. Yaakov only told him to go to a certain point to look for his brothers, and he continued on, and therefore the protection didn't apply anymore. But Rabbi Yaakov said, "I'm moiridik of heart." When Yaakov Avinu heard that his son is alive, and he's a king in Mitzrayim, that wasn't very appeasing to him. A king in Mitzrayim, what kind of a tzaddik can a king in Mitzrayim be? Rahman al-Islam, that's the kind of news that you're bringing me? My son is a king in Mitzrayim? Who knows what shaykhs he still has to Yiddishkeit, to Amun and the Rebbeinu Shalom. So right away, to offset this possible doubt, Yosef sent the message of the Egla Arufa. What was the message of the Egla Arufa? So Rabbi Yaakov explained, when a Yid walks away and no one cares for him and no one knows that he exists, he just ate his meal and he's on his own, who does the Torah blame? Who does the Torah hold accountable for this? The Ziknei Ha'ir, the Shoftim, the leaders of Klal Yisrael are summoned to the task. Are you doing your job? You think because you're a leader of Klal Yisrael, you don't have a responsibility to a yachid, to an individual? Did you train the people in your town what it means to treat a stranger? how to take him in, and perhaps even more important, how to send him away, to make him feel like a human being. Besides for the union of how the Maral explains it, Father Levracha told me the Bali Musar say, if you send away someone making him feel like a human being, and he feels good about himself, if an attacker attacks him, he has the courage to fight him off. But if someone is depressed and alone, and he's attacked, he has no courage to fight. So the one who robbed him of that courage, the one who took away the feeling of security from him, is indirectly accountable for his murder. And who allowed for an atmosphere, who is blamed for this type of an attitude, where no one feels like walking another year to the door? We blame the Ziknei here, the shoftim of that town. Where's your duty? Where's your achrayus to the tzibur? What are you emphasizing in your drashos? What type of chinuch is being portrayed to your children if this is how people treat each other? So Yosef HaTzadik said, Father, I know you're going to be frightened when you hear that I'm a king in Mitzrayim, but don't worry. I remember the parsha of Eglah Rufer of Yaakov explained. I remember what a king is in the context of how the Torah illustrates a king. Responsibility to be mechanech adar. Don't think I'm just a king in Mitzrayim. I am a person in a position to be mechanech adar and to help Klal Yisrael. And that is how I view any power that I have. And as a result of Tachi, Ruach Yaakov Aviyah. The Arizal once walked to Chaim Vital, and Chaim Vital asked, why are you accompanying me? And the Arizal said, nothing. But he walked him until a certain point, and he continued to steer after him. On his way home, Rabbi Chaim Vital was attacked by a wild donkey, and he was miraculously saved. There are many inyonim in walking someone to the door, in making him feel like a human being when he leaves. We don't have the koiches perhaps that the Arizal did, but the Torah guarantees certain things happen automatically. When a person associates himself with the tzibur, the less pirud, the more Klal Yisrael is drawn together, then the more protection reigns. And we have to remember in a simple sense, when you give someone a Danish, that's achnos esarchen. When you walk him to the door and smile, that's also achnos esarchen. But the effects of the Danish are soon over. The smile continues to accompany the person until the next time he sees you, whether that's a year, 2 years, 10 years, or a lifetime. And in the chus of this mitzvah, may we feel the presence of the Shekhinah smiling on us. When they once asked the great tzaddik, Baba Sali, Abba Chatzeri, why are you a zaycha to see things that no one else sees, such Ruach HaKodesh? He explained that the answer is simple. It's because my eyes did not see things that most people see. And when you're careful that your eyes shouldn't see the wrong things, automatically the right things fill the vacuum. The pasuk says, "Shoftim v'shaytrim titein lecha b'chol shirecha." And there's an issue over here why the lashon yachid is used. After all, the pasuk is addressing Klal Yisrael, the establishment of Klal Yisrael, the creation of a judiciary, of law enforcement in all situations, in all cities, in all countries, at all the gateways. So why then the lashon yachid, titein lecha b'chol shirecha, as if the pasuk was talking to an individual? The Chidah brings in the Sefer Nachal Kedainin from Reb Chaim Vital, when the pasuk says of your shoftim v'shaytrim titein lecha b'chol shirecha, shar, as we know, means a gate, an opening. Besides for the gateways to cities, the pasuk is also talking about the gateways that every person physically has. And those are the senses. The eyes are a gateway. The ears are a shar. Reyach is a shar. The nose is a shar, it's an opening. The mouth is a shar, the shar hadibur. The sense of touching is a shar, the shar hamishus. What is a gateway? It's an ability to communicate. It's an ability to pass through from inside the gate to the outside of the gate, or vice versa. Our body's ability to communicate and to absorb information is also a gate. Each is a gateway in its own right. And when the Torah says, "Shoftim v'shaytrim titein lecha b'chol shirecha," the Torah is warning us Every Yid has the obligation to appoint shoftim and shachterim, judges and policemen, to be careful, to act both as the judge and the dayan, that the wrong things don't enter our guf through the respective senses. And that's what the Torah B'davka uses the lashon yachid, the singular, shoftim, the shachterim, titein lecha, the chol shi'arecha. The Torah is talking to you and to me. We all have this obligation to appoint these security guards. So we don't look at the things we're not supposed to look at, we don't hear the things we're not supposed to hear, we don't smell the things we're not supposed to smell, and so on. When a person is zoicha, indeed, to appoint these shomrim and to establish this security apparatus by the gateways of his guf properly, to the best of his ability, then he is zoicha to a fulfillment of the pasuk in Yeshaya. Tifchu shi'arim, open up the gateways. The Yavai Goy Tzadik Shomer Amunim. The Gemara in Masechtas Shabbos darshans this pasuk about answering Omen Yehei Shmei Rabbah properly, but as the Chidah understands it, Tifchu shi'arim, the Yavai Goy Tzadik. If you close the gateways to the wrong things, the new gateways will open up. Shomer Amunim, for those who have this Amunah in their heart and they have this Mesiras Nefesh, and they are Zaycha Mida Keneged Mida, to a special Ruach HaKodesh, to a special divine understanding. The Mishnah says, Liyasid Lavei HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give to every tzaddik 310 worlds, whatever that means. The opening to these worlds, this divine insight into the heavenly realms, is directly linked to a person's ability to close his own openings to the wrong thing. It's interesting to note, in regard to Bilam, the pasuk says he was Shesom Ha'ayin. Rashi brings the Chazal over there that Bilam was blind in one eye. And the Targum touches the words, Shaper Chazi was able to see a lot. This is somewhat of a unique kind of situation. Rashi and the Targum often differ as to how to explain the pasuk, but to be 180 degrees apart, Rashi touches the same words that he was blind in one eye, and the Targum says it meant that he was able to see a lot. The Baal Shem HaKadosh says, Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim. Rashi and the Targum are both saying the same thing. In order for Bilam to be zeicha to any kind of nevuah, to any kind of divine prophecy, he had to at least have one aver, one sense, the kedusha, that was never nifka, that didn't see the wrong thing. So therefore Bilam had to be blind in one eye, because at least if he was blind on that one eye, he couldn't look at the wrong things with that one eye. And as a result, he was zeicha to the nevuah. So Rashi says he was blind in one eye, and the Targum says as a result he saw a lot. He had some divine insight. And that's what the pasuk is saying over here. The pasuk is asking us to turn a blind eye and a deaf ear, and to be mum to the wrong thing. Every person has shi'arim. Every person has gateways. Gateways to destruction and gateways to Ruach HaKodesh. It's our decision. We close one, we open the other. The Rambam says, and it's brought on a Shulchan Aruch Harachaim Siman Tavkov Chav Tes Siv Daled, quote, Chayav Bezin is obligated, Lahamid, to appoint Shaitim, Iragolim, policemen, security, during the Yom Tovim, Shiu Meshaitim Umispashtim. They should spread out and patrol, cover all bases, check out Beganais, the gardens, the pardesim, the orchards, the Alanaharis, and by the rivers, Shlo Yiskapsu Sham Lechel Velishtais Anoshim Zinashim, so that men and women don't get together, V'yavoyu L'dei Aveira. But this warning is not just for the gardens. Everyone should be warned. Shlo Yisarvu Anoshim Zinashim Bivatayim, that men and women should not mingle improperly in their houses, besimcha, especially during a time of joy where the Yetzer Hara may tend to lead the person into a more vulnerable situation. And to be careful with the wine, Shema Yavai L'dei Aveira, Ella Yiu Kulam Kedoshim. And that is how the V'siyais of the Mechaber of the Shulchan Aruch concludes Hilchas Yom Tov by quoting this Rambam. And this is why he suggests the Ber Mayim Chayim. The end of Parshas Re'eh, the very end of last week's Parsha, talks about the mitzvah of being Oile Regel, of everyone coming to Yerushalayim 3 times a year. And right afterwards, the very next mitzvah is Shoftim v'Shachterim Titein Lecha B'chol Shi'arecha. Again, the warning. during times of simcha and times of joy, gateways open up. The only problem is the gateway goes in two different directions. It can be a stepping stone to Ruach HaKodesh. A person can only be zeicha to nevuah through simcha. Simcha is the greatest of madregas. And on the other hand, it can also be an opening to the abyss. Because when the person feels he has nothing to worry about, and Daita Gas all over the world is his, and he's happy, and everyone is dressed up l'kavod yamtiv, so the gateway can unfortunately work in the opposite direction. And the purpose of the shoftim and the shotrim is to maintain that the traffic flows in the right direction. Toward that the Yom Tovim are gateways to Ruach HaKodesh and not Rachmana litzlan, an opening to the abyss. So again, there's the emphasis over here on the shoftim, the shotrim titein lecha. Because as much as it is the responsibility on Bezdin, on the leaders of Klal Yisrael, to maintain the standards of tznius, kedusha, and tahara, but the greatest responsibility rests on the person himself. Because ultimately, you are the one that has to make the decision. But everyone will be faced with the ultimate question: did you do your best? We find once in Chazal where there was an emphasis on creating a mechitza in the Beis Hamikdash because of the problem of teruvais between the men and the women. The women were sent up to the second level. They built a second level for the women to look down, and that was Sukkot during the Simchas Beis HaSheyeva. And it was called Simchas Beis HaSheyeva because Misham Shoyev in Ruach HaKodesh, and there they would draw Ruach HaKodesh like you would draw water from a well. So again, we see how these two things always clash. During the time of ultimate joy, the gateways are open. You can go either way. And therefore, it is precisely during the one time of the year, in the holiest place of the world, where Shasham Shayiv in Ruach HaKodesh, where there was a danger, more so than anywhere else of Teruvais Anoshim than Noshim, because if the gate is open, anything can come through. And it's over there the Chazal say, Tikkun Gadol, Tikkun Sham, they were masakin, a great Tikkun, by having the women go upstairs and to observe on a different level. It's interesting to note that the Rebbe of Melech in his famous Sekel Cotton, literally the small sheet, where he conveys to us what he feels are the main points in Yiddishkeit. One of the things the Rebbe of Melech says is every person should use his imagination. Imagination is a good thing if you imagine the right things. You should imagine that there is someone standing next to you. And when you're about to do something wrong or something that you know is not appropriate, that person is saying no, and he doesn't allow you to do it. Imagine. Work yourself up to the point where you really believe that there's someone there holding that stop sign, waving the finger. Don't do it. Don't do it. Look at the opportunity over here. By turning away, you'll be zeicha to Ruach HaKodesh to Simcha. The Shemer Emunim brings that there is no greater opportune time for your tefillah to be accepted than doing an actual Nisayan when you're turning away from something that you ought not to see. And the same is true for closing your ears to something you shouldn't hear, or closing your mouth to something you shouldn't say. I'll call Rega, the Rega Shadam Chayz and Tiv, the Gra brings in the Ageres Agra, he is zeicha to an Or Hagonis, to a hidden light, She'ein Kol Malach Uberia Yechoyle L'Shayar. The disciple writes this in a letter to a Bacher who felt that he wasn't that careful in regard to what he was looking at, and he was all broken by himself and depressed. And the disciple says, you have to understand, indeed, it may say that there's a certain amount of tumah that is accumulated to a person when he's nichshel and neveir and so on. But that is offset by the tremendous amount of kiddusha every time a person goes out and turns away. The shoftim, the shotrim titein lecha, b'chol she'yarecha, your guard resolves whether every crossroad in life is a stepping stone to Ruach HaKodesh or Rachmana litzlan to destruction. There is no middle ground. It's either one way or another. The Arachaim HaKodesh understands the shoftim, the shotrim titein lecha, b'chol she'yarecha in a different practical way. We all know the great controversy about political fundraising, campaign donations, but Lamaisa, the problem has not been resolved. If you help someone get into office, you expect and usually will get favors in return. If you are instrumental in getting a particular person appointed to a higher office, then you don't expect to be victimized by that person or to be controlled or restrained by that person. You expect just the opposite, for him to turn the other way and to allow you freedom that may be even beyond legal bounds. We try in a society to do everything to avoid that, but unfortunately that's what happens. Now the Torah tells us, someone's going to have to make the decision as to who appoints these shoftim and shachterim. And the shoftim and shachterim may do a very good job in controlling the masses, in regulating things that aren't appropriate, in being mechanech the people. But there's always going to be one person who feels he's above the law. This is a natural phenomenon. The one who appointed the shofet and the shacter. You're going to prosecute me? If not for me, you would be a nothing. I made you a judge. I put the bars on your sleeve. You're only a policeman because of me. You, the one who are appointing the shoftim and shachterim, appoint such judges that are so honest that they will deal with you who appointed them in the same manner they're going to deal with anyone else. The Tiferet Shloimeh says, shoftim and shachterim titein lecha b'chol shi'arecha. When it comes to judging yourself, the tzaddik can be harsh upon himself. He shouldn't consider himself a rasha. No one should. The Rambam says because the Yetzer Hara can use that as a means of, well, if you're a rasha anyhow, you may as well do what you want. But you should be critical and harsh of yourself. However, that's titein lecha when it comes to judging yourself. You should always demand more of yourself. You should always want better, strive for higher goals. But when it comes to others, there's a different rule to be applied. And that is the rule of being dan others l'kavchos. Shoftim v'shachterim titein lecha b'chol shi'arecha for you, but for someone else, always try to find the schus in him. Always try to rationalize why he's not so bad. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter said, Amunah, b'tarchain, cheshbon hanefesh, to be mefashvish b'maisim, see what I did wrong, to be makabel upon yourself to become better. All of that was meant for the person himself. But when someone else is in trouble, then don't look to decide why he's so bad and why he's deserving of this. For someone else, you go out and help. For yourself, you apply shoftim and shachterim. You reevaluate your situation. You see where you can become better. Now, of course, the Rav and the Dayanim, the leaders of Klal Yisrael, have upon themselves the obligation of indeed finding where the masses of Klal Yisrael need improvement, and during a time of tzaros, they would suggest where Klal Yisrael should be improved. That's not a steer to what we're saying. Of course, it's incumbent upon the Talmidei Chacham to seek out the aveira of the dar and to be married the people to tshuva. But in your own personal heart, the shoftim and the shachterim should be reserved for yourself, and for someone else, you should be danim l'kavchos. And when HaKadosh Baruch Hu came to Shlomo HaMelech in his dream when he was only 12 years old and asked, what do you want? And Shlomo was mispalel, v'nesato, li'avdecha, leiv, shemea, l'das, lishbet esamcha, l'havin, to understand, bein toiv l'ra, ki mi yochel lishbet esamcha hakavod hazeh. Shlomo was smart. Others had judged Klal Yisrael beforehand, and it wasn't a difficult time to judge people. The times of Shlomo, the era of Shlomo HaMelech, boasted the greatest of prosperity for Klal Yisrael. There were fewer disputes. Everyone had so much. But Shlomo was asking for something else over here, says the Tiferet Shloimeh. He knew he was going to get chachma. He knew he was going to get wisdom. He would understand all the cunning plans of anyone who would be deceitful. But by the same token, he was mispal to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to have a leiv l'shmaya, to be damned those people l'kavchus at the same time. Again, he would do what has to be done to correct wrongful situations. He would make the wrong party pay, but at the same time, because he would have this wisdom to understand how wrong people could be, he was mispal that simultaneously with that, he should have an ability to be damned them l'kavchus, to be me'or rachmim and chasadim on them. Make them ask mechila, make them rectify the situation, but at the same time, to love them also. Because as a leader of Klal Yisrael, as the king, his primary objective as the king is to be me'or chusim on Klal Yisrael. But because the term king, as Chazal understand it, comes along with judging, so Shlomo HaMelech asked that it shouldn't be a contradiction. We know whatever was created in this world, even things that appear to be negative, always have a use, or else the HaKadosh Baruch Hu would have not created it. So why did the HaKadosh Baruch Hu create a kruma cup, the Kafka said? In order to sometimes use it to be dam someone l'kavchos. Even if everything in the world suggests hate that person, come up with a svara why you should like him. Chazal tell us that the Tiferet Shloimeh kol ha'olam nizon b'shulchanina b'ni, the entire world had parnasa. in the chus of Chanina ben Geis. The Chanina beni and Chanina, my son, died like the kav charuvim the Erev Shabbos the Erev Shabbos. He lived on a kav, on a small measurement of carob, which grew on his carob tree that he collected every Erev Shabbos. The Tzar Shlomo says this was of Chanina ben Geis' insight into life. When it came to his own needs, it was shoftim v'shaychim titin l'cha b'chol shi'arecha. It was regulated, it was contained. He learned to be happy with what he has, but he didn't apply that to everyone else. When it came to Klal Yisrael, his attitude wasn't, well, if a kav shel charuvin is good enough for me, it's good enough for you. For someone else, his whole tafkid in life was to be mashpiyah, to be mispalel, for chesed, for parnasa. And because this was his attitude, that's why Klal Yisrael was takazaycha to parnasa, through him. If you're ever stuck on a piece of Gemara and you can't figure it out, a daf yomi shir, and it's just a difficult sequence and you're trying to remember what yesterday's daf was, a drasha, and you can't quite chap what the Maggid Shir is saying, so you may get a whole slew of advice as to what you can do to increase your comprehension. How to focus more on the problem, stop thinking about other things, how to prevent distractions, to be more relaxed, to get a good night's sleep. All of this is, of course, important. But there's a rather unconventional suggestion in the Sefer B'nai Yissaschar. We've mentioned this a while back in one of our shiurim. The B'nai Yissaschar says, Mamorei Chodesh Tammuz of Maimer Gimel, Sif Yezeh. Nearly it would appear to me, Kishiyilmid ha'adam ezel limud, if a person is learning something, ve'einai maven, and he does not understand, Yahara b'tshuva, then do tshuva. The Yismamer al ha-golas, and cry over the golas, the Yispal al ha-geula, and be mispal for geula. So he's actually breaking this up into three over here. Tshuva on a person's personal aveiros, crying over the massive of Klal Yisrael and golas, recognizing the problem, the tsar hashchina, and then to be mispal for geula. Al yedei zeh, through this, tisoyer datoi lehizboinein mashalo yoda. So somehow his das, his understanding, will be generated to be able to perceive, to comprehend what until now had for whatever reason evaded him. And how do I know this, asks the B'nai Yissaschar? Well, it's brought down in the Tikkun Zohar, he says, Kitzipar naidedes min kana, da shchinta, des kriyas tzipar. Like the bird, as it slowly moves away from its nest. That is the Shechina, that is called Tzipar. Kein ish noided nimakaimai da Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu follows suit, also not in his place. The isarach ruchei abasrayu, for the ruach of Moshe refuses to rest in Gan Eden. The B'nai Yissaschar explains as follows: when Moshe Rabbeinu gave over the Torah to the Yidden in Har Sinai, he didn't just give over the Torah. He applied himself, or even better, sort of literally poured himself into Klal Yisrael. In every Yid there is a mitzvah, a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu. When a Yid begins to learn or struggles to understand something, there generates within him the koyach of Moshe Rabbeinu, the ruach of Moshe Rabbeinu. But just like the Shechina Hakadosh is in Galus now, so the Pchina of the ruach of Moshe Rabbeinu is also in Galus. Just like Galus and all of its trappings takes us away from our emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the Shechina, which really is in front of us, is not seen. So the koyach of Moshe Rabbeinu that is within us, that lights up the words of Torah for us, is also in Galus. Galus covers that as well. If someone doesn't understand something in Torah, don't write it off to some type of attention deficit disorder, but write it off to the fact that the Pchina of Moshe is in Galus. And therefore, when you do tshuva, and you cry over the Churban, and you beg for Geula, the nitzot of Moshe Rabbeinu that is within you is uncovered, and then mainly you will have the Yishuv Adas to properly think into your learning. Thus Chazal say, Kol Mishaloi Nivne Beis HaMikdash B'Yamav, it is Kilu Nechrav B'Yamav. If the Beis HaMikdash wasn't built in your days, it is as if it was destroyed in your days. That's a difficult pill to swallow, because if the Beis HaMikdash was not built then in the days of Rabbi Akiva Eiger, in the days of the Baal Shem Tov, in the days of the Chassam Sofer, that means it's as if it was destroyed in their days. Well, if it's as if it was destroyed in their days, so what are we to say? So what hope do we have? Dr. B'nai Yisachar, you have to understand what this Chazal is saying. We are talking here to Yechidim, to individuals, not to Klal Yisrael in mass. Every single Yid has his chelik of the Beis HaMikdash that has to be built up. When you are mizboinein in the Torah that you are learning, then you are building the chelik of that Beis HaMikdash. If you don't understand, or even worse, you don't even try to learn, then you are not building your chelik in the Beis HaMikdash. Then that remains destroyed. Your personal mission, your assignment. Memela, says the B'nai Yisachar, we can sort of take advantage of it and sort of grab it from the other end. If you don't understand something in your learning, it's because you didn't build up your chelik of the Beis HaMikdash yet. It means that there is some chait within you that is blocking the koyach of Moshe Rabbeinu that wants to explain it to you. So by crying over the Churban and doing tshuva, memela, you will understand what you're learning. Do this, says the B'nai Yisachar, the yira plois mashallah yodad ata, and you will see amazing things in terms of what you didn't understand until now, and now you're going to understand it. V'hu ledati, and this, according to my understanding, concludes the B'nai Yisachar, is the side of the pasuk in this week's Seder. Kapitel Yod Zayin, pasuk Ches. Ki yipali mincha davar lamishpat. If there is a matter that is concealed from you in judgment, bein dam ledam, bein din ledin, between one decision and another decision, you don't know whether the person is pater or he's chayiv, to acquit him or to find him guilty. Bein nega lenega, is this nega tamei or not? Divrei rivois bisharecha. The Chachmei are arguing. One person says it's tamei, another brother says it's tahar. One person says he's chayiv, the other says he's pater. So what do? What is the solution? Get up and go to the place that HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose. Dr. B'nai Yisachar, if you don't understand something in learning, and you're trying, and that's not to say that a person shouldn't try, they should just run to do tshuva. Obviously, we're referring to someone who has already committed himself to the greatest extent, and he simply just doesn't get it, he cannot figure it out. Then get up and go to the Beis HaMikdash, meaning to tshuva, cry over the Churban Habayis, and be mispawel for the Geula. And then the B'nai Yisachar says, you will see amazing things. Now it's interesting, because how does Rashi teach the word ki yipali mincha davar? So he teach it's concealed, it's hidden from you. Rashi says, kol hafla loshen havdala uprisha. Every instance when this root of hafla is used, it denotes separation or removal. In other words, shahadavar nivda u'mechuseh mimeka. The matter is separated and concealed from you. The Rambam categorizes nidarim and shvuos under the title of hafla. It's distinct. You have to clearly know what you're doing. It's not like other mitzvahs where the Torah gives you the guidelines, and when it comes to nidarim and shvuos, the person accepts these kabbalas upon himself. So it's mamish what the B'nai Yisachar is saying. Right away the pasuk is telling you that if you don't understand something, you should know in reality you do understand it. The answer is within you. But it is hidden. It is covered. Remember, when you're trying to break through and understand, you're not trying to create something that is not there. You are simply trying to lift the cover, to unseparate something that has been separated. And the way to do that is to do tshuva and to get up and think about the Beis HaMikdash and be mispawel for the Beis HaMikdash. Rashi says on the pasuk, the Kamta v'Elisa Melamed, this teaches us that the Beis HaMikdash is higher than all other places. In other words, regardless of how your Torah has been covered up by the everyday hustle and bustle of life, your difficulties, your frustrations, the environment that may be alien to Torah. But remember, the Beis HaMikdash stands higher and above all of this. If you can just reach up toward it, if you can do tshuva and cry over the Churban and be mispalel, a sincere tefillah for Geula, then you are lifted above the covering, and the Torah that is within you will reveal itself. A young man told me that he was once driving. Reb Nosson Zachswagel, the previous Lakewood Mashgiach, the famous Mashgiach, who was known world over for his love for Mashiach, for teaching others to yearn for Mashiach. So they once had to go to one simcha, another simcha, and then he told me I made a mistake. I asked the Mashgiach will yet a haim game? Does the Mashgiach want to go home now? And he told me, boy, did I get it. A haim? Home? Suman stanzia geich. I'm going to my station, my temporary dwelling place. You know where home is. Home isn't in Lakewood. Home isn't in New Jersey. Home is in Eretz Yisrael. How can you talk that way? Of course, one of the first questions they're going to ask us, L'Yom Hadin, is, Sipisa Yeshua. Did you hope for Mashiach? In the bracha, the Semach David Avdecha, we say, Ki L'Shiascha Kivinu Kalayayim. We hope for your help every single day. And many bring over here, when a Yid says these words, Ki L'Shiascha Kivinu Kalayayim, if you say it with enough kavana, then it's a tremendous gula to be saved, Mikama Gzeres Kashes. When a person hopes for Mashiach enough, he begins to view the life around him as something more temporary, more transitory. He doesn't put so much emphasis on it. And as a result, it sort of becomes bottled on its own. The problems become less severe because it simply isn't all that important. If you're staying in a room for a day or two, you simply don't put that much of an emphasis on it. It doesn't bother you as much as your apartment. And your apartment doesn't bother you as much as your home. So the more temporary life around us becomes, the more we understand it as temporary, in a sense, the less concerned we are with it, and the more we can concentrate on more important things. And in turn, there's a greater koyach and a school attack to be mevatel. If you don't consider it all that important, then the koyach HaMekatre isn't that strong. I know we get a very chashuv Rosh Hashiva, not a very famous Rosh Hashiva, but a very chashuv Rosh Hashiva. So we had an incident where a builder was building something next to his house, and there was a point of, was his window blocked? Was his window not blocked? Was the person an inch into his property or not? Now, I'm not suggesting that one should build an inch into someone else's property. He's over a loisus of deraisa. And we're not discussing what the proper reaction should be to a situation like that. I just want to express a feeling that he said to his family when his family wanted to make a big tumult about it. They wanted to start Dinei Torah and to turn over the whole street. He said, "Wie lang lebt schon ein Mensch? How long does a person live? Is it really worth making such an issue of it? I have more important things to do." Because he put such a temporary spin on life, therefore he enjoys life more. He lives in a different world. And the remez is, Ki Yapalim Im Chadavar. If you feel hidden, covered, you're searching for the answers and it seems separated from you, it's concealed from you. And you simply can't figure out right from wrong, bein dam ledam, bein din ledin, bein nega lenega. There are frustrations, there are fights, arguments, disputes. So come to the Elisa Lamokim Mashiach Hashem Alekachabai. Then sometimes the Eitzah is lift yourself over it. Says Rashi. Understand it's all temporary. Understand it's all meaningless in the long run. It's only a matter of time before no one will know the difference anyhow. And if you can reach out to a yearning for something more real, what can I do to build my part of the Beis HaMikdash? How can I bring Mashiach closer? So you'll solve many of your problems. You're no longer living in confusion. The Kamta, get up, the Elisa, lift yourself over it. It's not that terribly important. There are more important things you should concentrate on. And when you start concentrating on the more important things, then somehow the smaller little confusions begin to resolve themselves. The Skolani Rebbe Chaim Levracha made an interesting diak over here in the Rashi on this pasuk. The pasuk says, Ki yapalim im chadavar lamishpat. If there's a matter concealed from you in judgment, bein dam ledam. Zok Rashi. Bein dam tamei ledam tar. We don't know whether the dam is tamei or tahar. Bein din ledin. We don't know whether the person is potter, bein din zakai, says Rashi, ledin chayiv, or whether he's chayiv. Ubein nega lenega, Rashi explains, we don't know the difference between a nega that is tamei or a nega that is tahar. Isn't it interesting? Then when Rashi explains bein dam ledam, Rashi says whether it's tamei or tahar. Rashi first says the possibility of chumrah. When it comes to bein din ledin, between a decision of acquittal or guilt, Rashi first says zakai or chayiv. We don't know whether he's to be acquitted or is he guilty. And then when it comes to nega, once again Rashi says benega tamei lenega tahar. The tamei comes before the tahar. In each case Rashi says maybe it's good or not good. But in the case of the dam and the nega, Rashi first says maybe it's not good or maybe it is good. Yet when it comes to whether the person is chayiv or pater, the order is maybe he's pater or maybe he's chayiv. The Torah comes before the chayiv. This is no small diak, says the Skolani Rebbe. Rashi is teaching us a way in life. If you're uncertain, ki yapalei, then this is the mahalach. If it's a shayla bein adam l'makayim, then you go l'chumrah. You don't know if it's kosher or not kosher. You don't take any chances. You don't know whether something is tamei or not tamei. You stay away from it. But when it comes to bein adam lechaveilai, it's just the opposite. you first assume that he's probably pater. You first assume that he's probably zakai. And you leave the chayiv on the back burner. Someone tells you something about someone else, be careful, don't invest with him. You have a right to be choshesh. You may not invest with him. But understand, the suffix is whether he's pater or chayiv, not the other way around. Not whether he's chayiv or pater. You assume he's pater, you're not makabel the lashon hara. Elamai, you have a right to be choshesh, you should be choshesh. If you have reason to believe that there may be a concern here. You can hold off pending further investigation, and if you never investigate the matter, you don't have to invest with him. But in terms of your attitude, the question isn't whether he's chayiv or zakai. The question is whether he's zakai or chayiv. The Skir Rebbe Chalabracha was a young bachur. He was a tremendous master. Somebody once said to him, so you're going to get older, you'll become a rav, you'll paskin dinei Torah. So as a little child, he says, I have a tremendous thirst to learn, and I want to learn the rest of my life, but I don't want to be a rav to paskin dinei Torah. So the man asked him, why not? So he says, because the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, when the two litigants come in for a din Torah, you have to view them both as Rishayim. And I don't want to have to look at another yid like he's a Rosh. They say there once was a din Torah between two big rabbei in Hungary, and they wanted a certain rav to paskin, so the rav said, I can't. They asked him, why not? He says, because according to the instructions of the Mishnah, I have to view them both as Rishayim, and I can't do that. So they said to him, look, if the Mishnah says you have to, that's the din Torah. So he told them, fine, but my bigger problem is with the next part of the Mishnah, because the Mishnah says, when the litigants leave you, they should be in your eyes like tzaddikim. So they said, what's wrong with that? He said, how can I leave them? If I have an association with such tzaddikim after the din Torah is over, the Mishnah says, I can't patra myself from them or dismiss them. But that's in terms of the dayan. The dayan, to ensure his objectivity, he has to first view them both equally as Rishayim and then as tzaddikim. But when you're not talking to the dayan, you're talking to the person who is seeking the dayan's advice. You're talking to the person who has a dispute with someone else. So here Rashi stresses the question is, bein din zakai le din chayiv. You have to assume lekaf chus and worry about the other possibility. Not to say he's for sure chayiv and just maybe he's zakai. The Arizal explained the pasuk this way based on a medrash. Perhaps you will see difficult things. For example, bein dam ledam. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, when you shecht a bird or a chay, you have to cover the blood. Yet in Golus we have seen Jewish blood flow openly. Bein din ledin. The din is, you're not permitted to shecht the mother and its baby on the same day. And yet we see in Golus that it's happened so many times. Uvei nega lenega. The halach is when the kohen comes to declare a house tameh, he has to first empty out the entire house, so that the utensil should not be lost with the house. Yet the Beis Elokim was burnt with everything inside it. The answer to this is divrei rivais b'sharecha. It's because of the machlokes. If there would be shalom in Klal Yisrael, then all of these halachos, the covering of the blood, the protection of the utensils in the house would apply to Klal Yisrael as well. It's the machlokes, it's the divrei rivais b'sharecha that undoes it. And the way back to shalom is the kamta v'yalisa l'mokem asher yivcha Hashem alekecha zay. If all of Klal Yisrael would have a common yearning for Yerushalayim, ir shechuber lo yachtav, if once again shalom will reign, then ish l'zeyehu, this is our hope for the bittul of all gzeres rois. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu help we should be zeichet to look up and then eventually through that to get up. El hamokem asher yivcha Hashem alekecha zay. A man once came to the Samzerov for a donation, and the man happened to mention that he was an anikel of the Shach, of Shabsi Kayin, the great posek. The Shach is considered the premier posek on Choshen Mishpat, and he lived during Klal Yisrael's, one of Klal Yisrael's most difficult eras, the times of Tach B'Tach, the great massacres of 1648 and 1649. The Shach is perhaps most well-known, besides those that learn Shach, from the story of the adopted princess. He was the father. So he mentioned to the Samzerov that he was an anikel of the Shach, and the Samzerov said, he said that you should know that he is an anikel of many, many tzaddikim, but not of the Shach. Even his mechatanim are anikel of many tzaddikim, but not of the Shach. And he always has this feeling in his heart that he wants to be mahana, anikel of great tzaddikim. So between his many sons-in-law and daughters-in-law, they are the anikel of so many tzaddikim, but God, he doesn't have anyone that's an anikel of the Shach. And now that someone who was an Einikel of the Shach has come to him, this is such a tremendous chus. Incidentally, I don't know if the Samzov did not have any Einikel of the Shach, or this was just something he told him. But in any event, the Samzov told him this is such a tremendous chus, and he gave this person royalty for an entire week. He stayed by him, and he kept on pumping him with kavod and encouragement, and encouraged others to give to him. And the man left there a new man. He had been a wayfarer, wandering from town to town at Tzibach, and a yid who had lost everything. And the mamish gave him a new lease on life. He was so happy. Then he came to a different town collecting, and he heard that there's a big gazir over here. So he figured last time he just mentioned Agav to the Samzarov that he was an Einikel of the Shach. If he mentions it again to this gazir, perhaps it'll also bring him the same results. So he knocked on the door of the gazir, and he saw right away this was no Samzarov. This was no person who went to sleep at night if he still had money in his possession. And finally the gazir gave him an audience, and he said to him, rather curtly, so what do you want? And he told him his problems, and the gazir gave him nothing or next to nothing. And he said to him, you should know I'm an Einikel of the Shach. And the gazir said, what? You're an Einikel of the Shach? And he proceeded by giving him a resounding slap and pushing him out the door. He said, the Shach, the commentary on Choshen Mishpat, you know, because of your grandfather, I just lost the Din Torah last week that cost me thousands of dollars. The Rav told me that his ruling against me was based on a Shach. I don't want to see you. There is no question that had this Gavir been an Einikel of the Shach, he himself would have gone around stating how proud he is, and you would have heard it by the Shidduchim that he made with his children. But, however, human nature is such that we tend to take someone else's Maila and interpret it as a general disadvantage, and if it's a disadvantage to us, even in a remote way, it becomes clearly a chesaron, and yet that same factor, as it applies to us, is considered a Maila. The Talmud Yaakov Yosef explained the pasuk, shoftim v'shoitrim titin lecha b'chol shi'orecha v'shoftim v'sulam mishpat tzedek. Those same shoftim v'shoitrim, those judges and policemen, that titin lecha, that you use to apply to yourself b'chol shi'orecha, what you determine for yourself is a maila and a chesaron. Those things, when it comes to yourself and your own family, your own business, your own estate, those things that you render something positive and therefore you seek to acquire more of it. And by the same token, the negativities that you seek to eradicate, that same mahalach that you apply for yourself, the shaftu with sulam mishpat tzedek, use that to judge others as well. Because people have a tendency to take one thing and turn it into something positive for themselves and negative as it applies to others. In a similar vein, the Talmud Yaakov Yosef explains also the Kli Yakar says something almost identical. The first thing is shoftim v'shoitrim titin lecha. Judge and evaluate your own actions, your own being, your own metzius. And after you have completely fulfilled that internal investigation, that internal audit within yourself, when shoftim v'shoitrim titin lecha, only then are you worthy of the shaftu v'sulam mishpat tzedek looking to judge others. This Gevir, even when he lost the Din Torah, had he done some thorough soul searching, he would have concluded, Baruch Hashem, thank you, Rav Shapsi Kain, thank you, the Shach. You saved me from Chas v'Shalom being nichshel in the Aveira of Gezel or Geneva that will have cost me on this world and who knows for how many centuries in the world to come. Had he applied the shoftim v'shoitrim titin lecha b'chol shi'arecha as it applies to you, then when it came to judge someone else, it would have been the shafta v'sulam mishpat tzedek. And the fact that that person was an Einikel of the Shach would have triggered him to help him, which eventually would have paid off its dividends and reward to this very day, like it does for the Samzirov. However, because he didn't thoroughly cleanse the shoftim v'shoitrim titin lecha b'chol shi'arecha, when it came to judging someone else, he was quick to throw him out the door. A different perspective on this from the Baal Nesivos, the Chedush Yerim discusses it. Shoftim v'shoitrim titin lecha. If you look at the Medrash, the Medrash says, Zesh Amar Akasav, this is what Shlomo Melech said in Mishlei, why don't you go to the ant? And look how smart the ant is. The ant has no general. The ant has no commander-in-chief. No captain, no officer that guides it, that tells it what to do. Despite its lack of hashgach. Amar Rav Shimon ben Chalafta, Maisa, there was a story ben Amala Achas by one ant, Shehepila Chita Achas, that dropped one piece of wheat. And you had a whole ant colony, thousands of ants, that walked by. They all came and took a sniff. Took a look at this piece of wheat. But each one tried to identify the piece of wheat, and when they realized that it was not there, they left it. Until the one ant who actually dropped it came back and picked it up. Look at the wisdom that it has. No judge, no official, no policeman. So Atem, you, Klal Yisrael, Sheminisi Lachem, Shoftim B'Shaitim, you do have Shoftim B'Shaitim, Anachas Kama B'Kama. How much more careful do you have to be? So, are the ants better off than we are? I mean, there's a kasha here. What do we need Shoftim B'Shaitim? I mean, we all know you can have plenty of Shoftim B'Shaitim, but those that want to steal continue stealing. Those that don't take the half of the affairs of Dibris that deals with Peinodam L'Chaveri seriously, they don't seem to be impressed with the Shoftim and the Shaitim. They find a way to swindle around them. So the end is, if anything, we should take the lesson from the ants. We should say it like this: forget the Shoftim and the Shaitim. Let's emphasize the understanding, the importance of respecting each other's nechasim, and we'll be as good as the ants are. That one person can drop something and 1,000 people will pass and no one will pick it up. Why is the Medrash associating the ants to Shoftim and Shaitim? Adarabah. The ants show us that Shoftim and Shaitim aren't necessarily the factor that separates honesty from dishonesty. So the Chedush Yerim says a Meir the Gevart. He says, you know why the Medrash is quoting over here the ants? There's a twofold lesson. Number one, there's the Pashup Shat. It's really Gevaldik. It's amazing. There's not a single ant in uniform, and yet everyone respects the other person's piece of wheat. But there's another lesson over here, which explains to us why we need Shoftim B'Shaitim. It's all really beautiful, very impressive. 1,000 ants walk by, and not a single one of them picks up the piece of wheat that one of its comrades in arms was carrying. But let's backtrack a little bit over here and ask a very basic question. Where did any of these ants get the wheat from? They're stealing it from the field. They're not buying the wheat. No one is feeding it to them. The insects crawl onto fields that someone else labored, that someone else worked on, and they are just taking it for themselves, and sometimes they completely destroy it. What do you mean? No one is touching the piece of wheat that doesn't belong to them. The whole wheat over here is stolen. Everything over here is just looting as far as the insects are concerned. Zak de Chedush Yerim, this is what the Medrash is explaining to us. Without Torah, without guidance, without the proper Shoftim V'Shaitim Titein L'cha, let a person not think, look, I don't need a Choshen Mishpat to teach me values. I don't need a Masechtas Bava Kama to teach me how to respect someone else's item. I have it within me. It's ingrained. It was part of the family values, part of the morals I was raised with. Look at the ants. Look how honest they are with each other. The ants are very honest with each other instinctively. They also group together to steal and loot from others. Without guidance, you may think you're being honest when it comes to your own benefit, when it comes to your own union, and by the same token, you may be continuously involved in the grandest of all larcenies, in the greatest Geneva that ever existed, the ants that destroy the crop of the world. That's what happens without Torah. That's what happens without a Messiah. That's what happens when you rely on your own seichel and on your own sense of values. That's why you need Shoftim and Shaitim. The Majid said, Rebbe Zechon Baruch Rav Shaul Yedidia, he asked why we say 3 times a day in Shemay Esrei, Hashiva Sheftenu Kavir Yeshenu V'Yayatzenu Kivat Chila. Hashiva Sheftenu, we turn our judges Kavir Yeshenu the way they were to start with, V'Yayatzenu Kivat Chila, and give us the same advice as it was to begin with. Rav Shaul Yedidia was a person that was Meister Nefesh himself for Klal Yisrael. In Shanghai, when the Yidden, the Yeshiva Bachrim, the Miri Yeshiva, were able miraculously, Mamish Nes al Pishamayim, to get a hold of the transit visas, to be able to get to Japan, there still remained a tremendous obstacle. And without a way around this obstacle, the visas and the whole hoopla that went along with getting them would have been useless. They would have been totally futile. You can't get to Japan unless you first had an exit visa out of Russia. And applying for an exit visa under Stalin could have also meant applying for a 10-year stay in Siberia, or maybe even 20. After all, what greater sabotage of a country can there be? What greater act of mutiny and rebellion can one possibly engage in than ask to leave? Just because the Soviet government would not allow them to learn or daven. And there was a great dispute amongst the whole Kehillah in Shanghai, should they apply for the visas or not? If even applying meant that there was no way out. But not applying put them in grave danger. I don't know if they understood exactly how grave the danger was. As far as they were understood, it was the danger of the Russians. The Russians were closing down the yeshivas. There would be no Torah. They also understood the imminent threat of the Germans that were fast and approaching Lithuania. Rav Shaul Yedidia was the first one to take matters into his own hands. He applied for an exit visa, despite his family warning him what is going to be and expressing their fears to him. But he said someone has to pave the way. There is hashgacha over here with these visas that were issued to us through Japan, and we have to apply a little mysterious nefesh over here. And what he got for his application was an invitation to visit the main KGB office in Vilna. His family was horrified. Everyone knew that as a place of possibly no return. He put on his Big Day Shabbos and very confidently walked into the KGB office. And when they asked him why he had the nerve to apply for an exit visa, he answered, Pashut, that the Soviet paradise is so great, he feels that the world misunderstands it. And he quoted many mamorim and many different hashkafic reasons why communism is so wonderful. And if he would only get a chance to get to America, he can explain that to the newspapers. The KGB was impressed. He was sent out. And when he came to America, he very cleverly, despite the fact that he and his whole family were safe, but he very cleverly took every interview he could, and he praised upon praise on the Soviet government and on the regime, and how the Soviet Union liberated Lithuania and what freedom he brought. And if only more of his colleagues can come out and explain this to the people who have such a warped impression of what Russia is. Many people over here couldn't possibly understand what he was doing. Why are you doing that? I mean, you're trying to apply for American citizenship, you're going to destroy yourself over here. But Rav Shaul Yedidia kept on taking interview after interview. And many people believe to this very day that that is the reason that a very thrilled KGB issued hundreds and hundreds of exit visas to B'nai Torah and their family, and in retrospect, this is what saved Torah. Rav Shaul Yedidia did not stay in America. He went to Eretz Yisrael. When he was nifter, he left in his savada. They should take him to the Har HaZeisim. It was during a very difficult time then. 7 Yidden had been killed that day on the way to Har HaZeisim. The Chazon Ish came to the Levaya, and he said they should go. He takes it on his achrayus. No one's going to be hurt. He said this Yid was my nefesh himself and saved Torah. And indeed, a very big Mishalachas went to Har HaZeisim. He was the last one that was buried there. Before, nobody would be able to be buried there until 67. So now that we know who this verse is coming from, let's listen very carefully. Rav Shaul Yedidia explained what is the meaning of Hashiva Shofteni K'v'yashayna v'yatzenu k'vatchila. There is no question that the shoftim and shaitrim of years ago were great tzaddikim. And great tzaddikim meant that when they sat down to judge, there was absolutely no other interest, nothing that affected their decisions other than their searching for the truth and to be mevarer din emes la'amitai. In the course of the years, this has been a difficult standard to live up to. It is easier said than done. And ein chacham k'bar nesayim. And Rav Shaul Yedidia explains that even though when a shofet originally becomes a dayan and someone assumes power, most people come in with very ethical goals and very inspirational objectives. I am going to be honest. I'm going to root out the corruption. I am going to be the symbol of emes. And what happens is, over the years, we naturally begin to become corrupted a little bit. We get very comfortable in our positions of shirara and power, and one begins to feel that someone is threatening that or competing to us. It's a very, very big nisayon to still rule objectively. For someone to have made it for himself and then to risk his own existence for someone else, because that is the end, because that is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. That is the kind of shoftim and shaitim that the Torah is looking for. So we are mispalo. Hashiva Shoftenu K'v'yashayna. The B'nai Shalom, we should be zaycha to have the kind of shoftim like the original members of the Sanhedrin. Of course we have to respect the shaitim of our time. Shmuel b'darei ki yiftach b'darei and be makabel the psak. But by the same token, we should be mispal, that we should be zeicha to manhigim that are similar to those of years ago, that emulate the ways of the shach or respect his words. And by the same token, even when a person becomes a shayfet, the tefillah continues. The ayatzeinu kivatchila, that the eitzos that he gives, the counsel and advice, his ruling should be based on kibatchila, as pure as they were kibatchila when he initially first started his career. Before he had to experience the many, many difficulties, the slander and the nisyonos and the complaints that people in power go through, and to still remain pure, that is something we are mispal for 3 times a day. And the emphasis what follows afterwards, I once heard of art, that if we had a munah, that everything is a shgacha process, and every difficulty that we endure in life, every concern, every fear, every pain, that there's a reason for everything, and nothing happens by chance. If a shiva shekteni could be a shaina, if we can feel the amunah that they had in the times of the Sanhedrin, the Yayatzeinu Kivat Chila, and we understand the Welt is Nishkan Hefgewelt, and for every drop of Yisurim there's a tremendous Gehenim discount, and everything has a reason, and everything has a cheshbon, that belief in itself takes away most of our anxiety. The fact the Baal Shem HaKadosh says, the more a person is minded that the world is not hefker, that even in his most difficult time, it is all the Gzeiras HaBayri, that within itself is mamtik the Gzeira. So, if shoftim, the shaytrim titin lecha, if you apply this to the way you think, that everything is with a cheshbon, everything is ashgacha, nothing is hefker, if someone stole from you or someone embarrassed you, it's not Hashemayim, it has nothing to do with him. Then really you're not so angry at it, and it is much easier to fulfill the v'shafti yisuam mishpat tzedek, to judge others righteously and to be done them l'kam's cause. Had I been by Kabbalah Satira, said Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, I would have made a special request of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I would have asked that HaKadosh Baruch Hu create us with 2 mouths, the same way we have 2 eyes and 2 ears. The reason for that request of Shimon Bar Yochai would have made, explains the Gemara in the Masechtas Brachos, is that this way a person can have 1 mouth for all of his needs, to engage in business, the regular mundane matters of day-to-day life, and he can reserve his other mouth exclusively for holy things, for Torah, for Tefillah, for Chesed. But afterwards, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai said, no, on second thought, the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu did it, giving us only 1 mouth is much better. Wow. Can you imagine? Madach, we have only 1 mouth, says Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. And the world is almost destroyed by Lashon Hara, by the Lashon Hara of this 1 mouth that we all have. If we had 2 mouths, it's not that we would use 1 for legal mundane matters and the other for Torah. Most of the world would wind up using both of their mouths for the most malicious Lashon Hara. And then, how would the world have a kiyum if it can barely survive the Lashon Hara of the 1 mouth that we have? The Shulchan Malachim brings a beautiful remes to this from this week's parsha. Where do we find in the Torah the Lashon al pi? Via a person's mouth. Well, it says, Kapitel Yud Zayin, Pasuk Vav, al pi shnayim edem, by shloisha edem yumasaneh. It also says later on in this week's parsha, Kapitel Yud Zayin, Pasuk Yud, in regard to listening to the Chachamim, v'asisa al pi hadavar asher yagid lecha, and in Pasuk Yud Aleph, al pi ha'torah asher yerucha. Further on in this week's parsha, by the parsha of Egla Rufa, at the end of Parsha Shoftim, Kapitel Chaf Aleph, Pasuk A, the pasuk concludes, the al pihem iya kori v'chol naga. Based on whatever the Kohanim, the Bnei Levi say, they decide any dispute amongst people, they determine the status of a nega. So the first is al pi shnayim edem. In other words, at first glance, the Shimon Bar Yochai wanted to say, wouldn't it have been a great idea for a person to have 2 mouths and reserve 1 mouth exclusively for Kiddusha, for Torah? How much more power would that Torah have, would that Tefillah have, if that mouth wasn't marred, if it wasn't scarred by words that one ought not to say? It should really be al pi shnayim, you should have 2 mouths. And what would I do with these 2 mouths? Al pi hadavar. 1 would be for davar, for stam diburim shel chayil. Take care of your business matters, buy this, sell that. And the other, Al Pi HaTorah, to speak Divrei Torah with. Just Divrei Torah with. That sounds like it's a great idea. But if it would have been such a great idea, Kadosh Baruch Hu would have provided us with two mouths. The reason we have only one is because had we had those two mouths, maybe there would have been a select few who would have taken the opportunity of reserving a Torah-only mouth. But for most of us, it would have been Al Pihem Yeh. We would have used both of those mouths, Lashon Rabim. For what? For Kol Riv V'Chol Nega. For every kind of machlokes, to promote kinds of negayim, things that are improper. It's much better that at least there's some damage control because we only have one mouth to do it with, not two. Of course, Hashem is teaching us a lesson. Don't try to think you're smarter than the Rebbeinu Shalom. But he's teaching us a deeper lesson. He is addressing the core of the Yetzer Hara, the Yetzer Hara's best argument. And that is, of course, you would get your act together. Of course you would do tshuva. If only I had more time to learn, if only I had more peace of mind, if only I had a chavus, if only I had a better mind, if only... There's no end to the if. If only my situation was such that it was possible for me to be able to learn, if only I had a desk at home, if only anything. There's always a reason that if it would be different, then I would be able to be an Erlich Yid. Then I can do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to do. The only problem is, it's not that way. If I would only have two mouths, one for Torah and one for everything else, then I would be able to learn. But what can I do? I have only one mouth. So I have to lie to a client, and I have to lose myself and say things I ought not to say, and then you expect me to learn with this mouth? So what do you want? Hashem is teaching us a lesson. He says it doesn't work that way. I know if you could write the script, you would have everything set up differently, and then you would be a real Erlich Yid. That's what you think. Your only chance is with the one mouth that you have, with the one desk that you have, with the kind of peace of mind that HaKadosh Baruch Hu afforded you, with everything else that makes up your essence, your reality. One of the Talmidei Baal Shem once said a story that there were neshamas who were sent down to this world again and again and again because they just could never get it straight. So after going through this life and all of its difficulties and hardships and the trials and tribulations, they went back up to Shamayim and they were told, nope, got to try again. So all of these neshamas got together. They made a protest to the Beis Shamayim. They said, Ad Matzai, how many times can we keep doing this? So give us one thing. If we can master that one idea, tell us that if we do that, it will be the last time we have to come down to this world. So a baskol rang out from the heavenly realms and declared, go through your life without once saying the word if. If you can do that, if you can have an if-less life, just accept things as they are and do your best, then don't worry. You will come to your makom menucha v'nachwa. Parsha Shoftim has 41 mitzvahs. 14 mitzvahs a say and 27 mitzvahs lois a say. And there is one theme that threads through all of that. A request that a Yid look for reality. Don't look to try to change things. Look to deal with what you have. And don't fool yourself. Don't live in an illusion. Shoftim b'shoitrim titen l'cha b'chol shi'arecha. Place judges and policemen in all of your gateways. Your gateways refer, Svarim HaKadoshim say, to the gateways of your mind, your eyes, your ears, your mouth. Control them. Apply judges to you. Be mevatel your das to someone who is smarter than you. Appoint people who are more erlich, people who have more experience, people who are impartial and are objective, and listen to them. Be mevatel your own ratzain to them. Don't allow your feeling of the moment to determine what you can do or what you can't do. The Samsaifer once said, referring to his board of directors, I guess, Shoftim v'shoitrim titen l'cha. Who are the ones that appoint the Rav? The Balabatim, the Rosh Yakol. So the Pasuk says very often they appoint a Rav, and they're very, very interested in that Rav setting down the guidelines of the Kehillah. And yes, They'll make it clear by that very first meeting they want the Rav to guide the Kehillah with an iron hand, and a loving hand. No nonsense. Emes. They want that for all the members of the Kehillah, but sometimes they don't necessarily want that for themselves. So therefore the Pasuk warns us. Shoftim v'shoitim titen lecha. Appoint your Rosh Yeshivas, appoint your Dayanim, but titen lecha. Your great speech about how you want them to be impartial, to be determined, apply that lecha to yourself as well. You also have to be mevatel yourself to them, even though you appointed them. The Torah talks about the mitzvah of leisata mishpat, leisakir ponim, leisikach shoichat. Ki ha-shoichat ya'aver einech hacham v'yisalef divrei tzadikim. Don't fool yourself. If you are an ogea b'davar, if you received a favor from someone, you may think you're impartial. You may think you are judging fairly. You're not. The Chafetz Chaim says if Moshe, the carpenter, calls me a chacham, that could mean I'm a chacham. It could be I'm just smarter than Moshe the carpenter. If Yankov the butcher calls me a chacham, that could mean I'm a chacham, or it could be I'm just smarter than Yankov the butcher. But if the greatest chacham in the town calls me a chacham, then at least I'm probably smarter than everyone in the town. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls me a chacham, then I'm the smartest person in the world. And the Torah says even you. If you have negias, if you're getting something out of this, then be mafalik yourself. Then don't fool yourself into an illusion that you can maintain emes. You can't. It's just not how the human psychic, how the metzias of the Ramachi Vorim and Shosah Gidim of a person work. We turn to where we think it is best for us. Then the Torah tells us, Leisita lecha asherah kalef. You shouldn't plant an asherah tree. An asherah tree looks like an ordinary tree. It's a beautiful tree. It was also a very common and popular avodah zarah. A person is chayiv as soon as he plants it, even before he serves the tree. The pasuk also says you aren't permitted to plant any kind of a tree next to the mizbeach. There's a Ma'or De'Gevurah from Reb Chaim. Reb Chaim says that an asherah is different than other avodah zarah. If you see a huge statue, a huge idol in a temple, so you know it's an avodah zarah. If you see a beautiful looking tree, an innocent tree, you don't realize it's an avodah zarah. And you may see people walking toward the tree and admiring the tree, and you may join them because you also think it's a nice tree. And you still don't realize that you have joined a group of Oivdei avodah zarah. And sometimes you may only realize too late, after you have already been absorbed, after you've been initiated into their ideas, into their teachings, into their feelings. That is the danger of an asherah as opposed to a marked avodah zarah. First you think it's just a tree. You only realize it's an avodah zarah when it's too late. Dr. Chaim, Chazal tell us if someone is mamid a dayan she'eino hagin, if someone appoints a judge who is not an erlich yid, it is tantamount to planting an asherah next to the mizbeach. If you appoint a judge who is not erlich, who is not from, but he wears the levush of a Rav and he gives nice speeches, but on the inside he is dishonest, so people are drawn to him, people respect him, because after all, it looks like just a nice tree. More than just a nice tree, a glorious tree, a place that casts shade and fruit. It's so wonderful to be there. After all, he's a dayan. And by the time you realize that you've been fooled, it's too late. The word asherah says the Balaturim is Gematria 505. The same numerical value as dayan she'eino hagin, a judge who is not a proper judge. Reb Meir Shapiro said, why is a judge compared to the Mizbeach? The Mizbeach was copper on the outside and earth on the inside. A judge sometimes has to be hard like copper on the outside. Demand justice, not bend from the truth, regardless of what pressures are on him or who is applying that pressure. But on the inside, he can never lose his softness. He has to be like earth, always understanding and relating to the feelings and emotions and needs of every single yid. Then you have the mitzvah not to be makriv, a blemished carbon on the mizbeach. Again, it's all the same idea. A person is trying to serve Hashem in a misguided way. You have the mitzvah of listening to the Beis Din Haggadah, not to argue on the Bali Kabbalah, meaning those who have the Messiah in Klal Yisrael. Even if what they say to you seems to be exactly the opposite of what you ought to do. To appoint a melech over Klal Yisrael. and not to appoint a melech from someone who is not from your kind, not from your thinking. And then there is a mitzvah on the king, that he doesn't allow himself to be fooled, and therefore he shouldn't take on too many horses. The Torah warns us not to leave the environment of Eretz Yisrael, not to return to Mitzrayim. The melech shouldn't have too many wives. The melech shouldn't indulge in too much money. The melech should always have that Sefer Torah that is miyuchet for him, special for him. That say that ladies should remain aloof. They should not take a chaylik in Eretz Yisrael, not get involved in business, not to have the nesiyayim so that people can look up to them for objectivity. You have various different matnos kahuna, the mitzvah of truma. Not to fool yourself when your business goes well, when your field go well, that this is yours, that this is mine, to remember that it's all a gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu and a test to see what you're going to do with it. There is the mitzvah of the Kaihanim to divide the power fairly into shifts in the Beis HaMikdash, and not to take advantage of their mantle of Kedusha and use it for their own esteem. There are various different mitzvahs not to engage in kishuf, not to engage in some type of supernatural power where, if only I had that crystal ball, then life would be so much better, so much more organized, only then would I be successful. And along the same lines, you have the various different warnings about false prophets. The mitzvah of Tamim Tiyem Hashem Alekecha. The mitzvah of not to be Masig Gavol. Don't move over that boundary marker just a few feet, because if only I had a bigger field and no one's looking anyway. You have the mitzvah of separating the Arei Miklat. If someone kills someone else b'shogeg, the Goyal Adam, the relative, has the right to kill him unless he runs into one of those cities of refuge. 2 people once came to Radin to collect money, or that general area. One represented organizations that really did not believe in Torah and mitzvahs at all, and publicly denied the existence of their creator. Another went for Erlich Moses. Both came from Yerushalayim. The first was extremely successful. The latter struggled and still had many struggles ahead of him. And he came to the Chavetz Chaim and he was very discouraged. He said, we both came together, and look, he's already going home and I'm not even halfway through. So the Chavetz Chaim told him. The pasuk says, and this is Parsha Tachin L'cha Derech, prepare a way for the murderer to run and to get to that city of refuge. Rashi tells us, quoting the Gemara, that they were mechuyev to put up directional signs by the Prashas Drachim. There's the Miklat. There's the city of refuge. It's interesting. In fact, the Chavetz Chaim, you had masses of people going to the Eile Regel, going up to Yerushalayim. How come there's no mitzvah to put up directional signs this way to the Eile Regel, this way to Yerushalayim, this way to the Beis HaMikdash? It's only for the Ritzeach to get to the Arei Miklat. So let me share with you a little story before I tell you the Chavetz Chaim's teretz. I was once driving in a very remote part of the country, and I had directions, and I had a map. There was only one thing missing: street signs. You would drive on an isolated, lonely, narrow road, and when you finally got to a crossroad, you had to sort of estimate from the map what the crossroad was, because there was no sign, just an empty pole. Then a couple of weeks later, I drove the same road, and there were plenty of signs there. So one of the locals explained it to me. He said the people took the signs off because they didn't want unwanted guests. They didn't like the idea that tourists were driving by this very scenic area. So they figured it'll make it hard for them, so they won't come. But afterwards, they realized it had the opposite effect. Without signs, you have to stop, get out, knock on doors, ask for directions. Forget it. They'd much rather have the signs. This way the people would just drive through, and at least they don't bother them. So the Chavetz Chaim's teretz is now obvious. When it came to the Ritzeach, the Torah didn't want this person to have anything to do with the people. Even though it was only b'shogeg, but l'maisa, he was careless. We don't want children to talk about this. Someone was murdered. When it comes to being Eile Regel, adarabah, let him stop, let him ask for directions, let the people say, where are you going? Let him say, I'm coming to Yerushalayim, why don't you come along? But there's a tifa deher here. This Meshulach from Yerushalayim was an Erlich Yid. When he would come and talk to people about the Mesiras Nefesh of the Erlich Yidden living in Yerushalayim and their great sacrifice for Torah, that kindled the excitement, the emunah in the hearts of people. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want to put up street signs for him. The more people would have to contact, the better.
This shiur is distributed by Koladaf, 11 Stay Chemet Street, Yerushalayim. For donations, please call 02-5383-999. Fax 02-538-0267. Post Box 57035.